Tom, it was interesting to take these focal points. Here's the big areas of life that we tend to look at. It's the beginning of the year, and we're all looking at goals. We talked about it in our last show together about what motivates us. We talked about that was in show 954, is it desire or pain or fear or whatnot. But here, I really wanted to see, thinking about motive again, what motivates us as we look at the list. And I kind of expanded out to 12 things, from relationships to experiences to health and wellness. And I was looking for the emotion, which is the core of our motive, looking at the emotion and going, what are we excited about? That's what I ask people. What are they excited about? As opposed to where we know a lot of the goals end up with, is we look at it and it's not exciting. It's daunting. It may be frustrating. There may be even anger attached to that. So as we look at that, like somebody who has, health and wellness is consummately, now it'll be interesting to hear what our results were here, but it's consummately the number one focus as we look at New Year's resolutions and whatnot. And yet the reality that most people get up the next morning, January 1, 2, whatever, and they look at that and it is not exciting. It's just, today is okay, crap. I got to go out and exercise. I can't eat what I want. I got to eat nothing, greens, rabbit food, what, it's not exciting. And then no wonder, well, that's what I want to play with you on. I want your insight, because then we know the stats on New Year's resolutions and how quickly they go by the wayside. And I'm interested in the stats as they relate to the emotions that we have towards that pursuit. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a great question because, we try to avoid pain. We get more motivated by avoiding pain. And, you put wellness in there or physical health, how excited do you get for that? Usually you get excited about that when you miss it.
True. Yeah.
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 So yeah, I totally get it. I'm looking at that list and gosh, I like adventure, which I guess would be put under experiences. Mm-hmm. But I want new experiences in everything because I love growing. So if I get excited with if I grow in my state of mind, if I get an achievement that required growth. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
no, well, you just hit the punchline as well, because, okay, so this is me putting it on Facebook. And talking about it in my Driven to Live community and just asking people what got them most excited. Now, it's a biased community. These are people who are goal-oriented people. It's a biased community. And it's so hard. I mean, I could have written more, but you don't get responses on Facebook and social media if you write too much, make it too big. But I could have gone into it more and said, hey, I'm looking for the emotion. I'm not looking for the expectation, because we might look at that and go, well, I should be excited about my health. I should be excited about my work or making more money. So with all that said, hoping that people did respond more authentically with what excites them with the emotion, the number one pick is just what you said, Tom: experiences. So as people look through all those things, look through health and wellness, relationships, spirituality, achievements, contribution, all these big things, people just honestly looked at it, what excites them? Experiences. To me, that's a big deal, to look at that and go, that's the most exciting thing. What should that say? What could that say? What might that say about our priorities as we look to the new year? Or do we discount that and say, well, no, just because you're excited about that doesn't mean you should make it the priority? I mean, of course, everybody wants experiences, and that's what you get on your annual vacation. Other than that, you stick to the grindstone. Tom, what do you think?
Gosh, I love it. My word for the year is reimagination.
Yeah.
And one of our ZLCers Kristen asked me, why did you pick reimagination instead of imagination? And I said, well, I think so many people have been trapped on a path and they've been knocked off the path. Right? They've, the life that we had is gone for so many people. I mean, it's not coming back with all the changes that have happened in the last couple of years, all the disruption. We've talked about that often. And then I went on and explained, I said, instead of, and you said this just a second ago, instead of focusing on what we should do, we should reimagine what we could do. And so that's where I love could instead of should, because should kind of gives social expectation. Like we're bowing to social expectation. Not that that's always negative. There's some great social expectations about how we treat each other and manners and politeness and decorum and those kind of things. But a lot of people keep on the path that they were on because they feel an expectation that that's who they are and that's what they should do. And I just fall back on the fact that our identity is not what we do, but whose we are.
Yep.
Right. So I say, as a believer, my identity is in Christ. And so what could I do in that identity is, to me, much more exciting than what I should do based on the world's declaration of what that looks like.
Well, and there you go. There's the point of this show. And we're talking about, I mean, it belies the issue of anything that we're going to do that's contrary to the norm, is going to be difficult. And yet when we look at people's true hearts, it is contrary to the norm. I mean, experiences, and that's not what we really uphold as a valuable priority. It's a luxury. We continue to look at that. It's a luxury. And so we applaud it. We worship it to some degree. I mean, look at Instagram, and it's the lifestyles of the rich and famous. I mean, whoever's old enough to remember that show, it was his name was like Robin Dreech or something like that. Does that ring a bell? Yeah, something like that. English accent. And he went lifestyles of the rich and famous, went around. We love to see that. That's what Instagram is. And a lot of, these social media things is to see what, somebody's in Cancun and their beautiful lifestyle. We applaud that, but we think of it as a luxury as opposed to, man, if that's what excites us, why isn't that more of a priority? Now, a couple interesting things too, Tom. The second one was health and wellness, which I would have thought would be in the should thing, and thought that it would have less excitement attributed to it. Though to me, it's interesting if we relate that to the experiences, because we often, so I'm standing here in my office that's in the True Life Medicine medical building that my buddy Randy James owns. And he's on the other side, literally on the other side of the wall right now, meeting with a patient. I can hear the low hum of his voice. And they're talking about health and wellness. He starts off, and folks, you can look at what he does, truelifemedicine.com. And he starts off really getting to the root issues of people's health and wellness. And he asks them, what is your goal? Primarily, I mean, a lot of people are saying, hey, it's just to not hurt. It's just to not have aches and pains. But from a tangible, active aspect outside of that, it's generally they want to do something. They want to, and it could be, I want to be able just to get down on the floor and get back up again so I can play with my grandkids. Or I want to be able to hike, or I mean, there's a guy in here that's a friend of ours who's an ultra endurance athlete, and he wants to best his time in the next 50-mile run or whatnot. But it's usually to enable that experience, which I relate to so much. Most of my experiences are of a physical activity nature. And if I don't have health and wellness, I can't experience those. So I am excited about that. So that was an interesting correlation that I really didn't expect, Tom. I figured most people would be looking at health and wellness and go, man, no, I know that that's important, but I'm not excited about that. So I was surprised on that one.
Yeah, it's interesting because yesterday I read an article on health and wellness, and it was about training our brain on how to eat rather than going on a diet. And the the thing that I took away was it basically said, experience every bite of food and ask yourself, what are you feeling? Why are you feeling that way? Are you hungry? Are you eating for some other reason? And then went on to say, a lot of people, they just love ice cream. And when they dig into it, it's because their brain associates ice cream with celebration and happy times. And when they were a kid and they had a party and they got it every now and then. And so they grow up and they're like, I want to be happy. So their brain thinks ice cream, not because ice cream makes them happy. It was the experience that they ate the ice cream in
Interesting.
that made them happy. And so I can see health and wellness being right in there because, maybe what it is we need to experience intently, gosh, with our mindfulness, with our presence, what's going on. And I know that if you're an athlete and you bike or you run or you do any type of endurance sport, there ends up being a zone that you just get into, and you almost just have this view of the environment that's completely different. It's like you're outside of yourself looking at the situation. Not that I would know that personally, but I've read that people feel that. But I think what's happening is it transcends the physical action into an experience.
Yeah. Yeah, man, totally agree. I do want to hit on you talking about that experiencing a bite of food as it's an interesting thing because in our culture, we generally, if we sit down to a plate of food and it's good, you wolf it down. Oh my God. I mean, that's the consummate picture. This is so good, bro. And you just stuff your face. And it really kind of goes against, if you step back and think about it logically, you would think, man, if this tastes really good, wouldn't you want to savor it? To put it in there, kind of like, a wine tasting. If you do a wine tasting, you go in there and you don't say, oh my gosh, this bottle of wine is really good, and just knock back the bottle and chug it. When have you ever seen somebody do that? If it's really good, they're sitting there taking this little sip and they do, run some air over it, gurgle it in your mouth, swish it around to really taste it. My daughter just got back from France and making wine, and she brought wine, and we did that. She also brought macaroons, like the highest quality macaroons, and brought them back, and we taste tested 12 varieties maybe. And so these macaroons are really expensive. They're really little. And there was probably 8, 10 of us at the table. Everybody wants to try every one. So we got these little bitty pieces. And so we literally put it in our mouth, kind of move it around. I would smash it against the roof of my mouth with my tongue and really try to get the taste. And she was saying, what does it taste like? And can we guess it? And experiencing that food, we did that. And it kind of is interesting that we tend to, instead of savor that really good food that so-and-so made, or that plate of ribs or whatever it is that you're sitting down to, that instead of savoring it, we wolf it down. And did we really experience that? I mean, we've all probably seen somebody or a kid and go, dude, did you even taste it? It was like 30 seconds and it's gone.
I know. It's, sushi is one of those foods that I think in the original Japanese tradition, it was meant to be savored. I mean, yeah. it was, every proportion, every cut, the presentation, the view of it, the way it's laid out, yeah. The sequence in which you eat it, all of that was designed. And it's funny because I learned how to eat sushi, and then they had all these sushi buffets open up. And if you've ever had the pleasure of experiencing a sushi buffet, it's not about necessarily quality or taste. It's about volume. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember going there probably the last time I went to one, and I was like, gosh, the anticipation and the expectation versus what actually happened, two different things. And so now when I order sushi, especially if there's 4 or 5 different varieties of sushi on my plate, I will select the sequence that I eat them in, so that I can have a specific taste in my mouth when I'm done.
Yeah.
That's a totally different view. And I wonder, gosh, how much of our appetite, the physical food appetite that we have, I wonder how much of it would change if our whole perspective was, gosh, how can I savor each bite, and how am I feeling, and what is this doing to everything else? Because I eat less sushi now, I think, just because of that forethought. It's not about how much can I cram in at the 1995 sushi buffet.
Yeah. It's funny because I got chastised for how I was eating sushi, soaking it up with all these sauces and stuff. Yeah,
we're horrible.
I know. Yeah. So I'm with you there. So, well, okay. So experience is number one. Health and wellness, which I'm going to say is a correlation to helping us experience or really be able to have those experiences. But now here's what I want to play with a little bit. Well, let me read down through. The next one was state of mind. Okay. So people are excited about thinking about changing their state of mind, which I'm going to think is towards probably dealing with our growing anxiety. People want peace. And I'll tell you, really, number one for me is that state of mind. I am more excited about some of the aspects of state of mind that I'm growing in than anything. But that was next. Number four was contribution, which we all know that how much of our longing is to matter, to have what we do matter, have who we be, matter. Contribution, relationships and spirituality were next. Money, and I put possessions because that's a lot of time, people may think about money, or sometimes they may be thinking, man, this year I want a new car or a new house or to get out of debt or to purchase something, whatever. So I put money and possessions. That was next. Then self-care. And now here, second to last, Tom, work. Second to last was work. Now, the last one, just to finish that out, was achievements. And that was interesting to have that down there. We could talk about that, but I do want to come up here and talk about work. So here we have the number one response of, hey, what I'm excited about for the new year. If I'm just looking at my emotions, what excites me is experiences. And almost last is work. That place where we spend the majority of our time, the majority of our best energy is at this place where we're saying that's the least exciting thing. And of course, you've got the great reimagination, which is somewhat of a fruition of you bubbling up from the great resignation that we're dealing with right now. People leaving work, cashing out, doing whatever, living on less, whatever they're doing. And work is not doing it. And here we are. I mean, how many years, Tom, have we been talking about, work at what you enjoy, work at what you love? That's my dad, Dan Miller, 48 Days of Work You Love, one of the best selling, personal development, business development books out there. Working at your passions. He has another book that he wrote with my brother, Jared, on Gaza, turning your passions, or no, it's wisdom meets passion, but kind of that passions into profits type idea. Apparently we're not doing it very well, Tom. That's a hard reality to say. Here we are at the dawn of 2022, and people are most excited about experiences, least excited about their work. And yet we're going to go forward, spend most of our time at work. It almost belies the questions of what do we do with that? Because we have lots of ideas and answers, but they don't seem to be taking root.
Maybe what we need to do is ask when we think of our work, and there's different spectrums of work, right? There's the type of work where you stumbled into, it wasn't by design. Somebody said, hey, come try this out. You grew in it. You had maybe a little bit of talent. You had some success. You might've had a knack. It was never a passion. It was never what you felt like you were made for, but the stainless steel handcuffs came along and became too expensive or too far out of the comfort zone to make a change. Mm-hmm. Right. Or maybe you're doing exactly what you love, the other end of the spectrum. Maybe this question will help bring some experience to work. Instead of thinking, how should I work? Think, how could I work? Because when I think of, like, I love speaking, and if you say, well, why do you love speaking? I'll be honest with you. It's not for the thrill of the stage. It's for going on a trip, new experiences, the anticipation, the people you meet beforehand. If it's a nice location, it's getting that picture, that souvenir. And then it's talking to everybody when I'm done about what'd you think? What'd that mean? How does that make you feel? So instead of saying, what should I have done? I should have prepared and done the best speech I could. I think, I'm kind of more in the, what could I do? Well, I can make the whole thing an experience. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a cool way to look at it. So no matter how quote unquote mundane you think you do, what you do is, how could you do it differently? And I've seen people in quote unquote mundane positions totally change the atmosphere. I think we've all seen the traffic policeman dancing while they're doing the traffic. Mm-hmm. And so And then they had all these people holding signs, to advertise a location. And now all those people dance. I mean, it's like you only see ones that get hired because they know how to dance and twirl the sign, right? So they're making, and I look, and then I know somebody who's like, they had a job and they're like, I don't want to give up my job. And I said, why? And it was just a part-time thing. And they said, well, I burn so many calories doing it. It's the best workout in the world. And I get paid to work out. And so this person had this view of the work that he got paid to do totally and completely different than most people would think.
Yeah.
He was going out thinking, I get paid to work out. And other people would be like, man, that looks like, hard work. Why do you do it 3 times a week? Why don't you quit? Why don't you focus your energy somewhere else?
Agreed. I mean, this is a huge issue. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, Tom, I'm thinking this in and of itself is another show, is talking about our excitement for experiences and our lack of excitement for work. Matter of fact, I might just need to get old Dan Miller, my dad, on the show and talk about that because it's such a big issue. But if we look at this, it's interesting. Again, the third thing, Tom, is state of mind. That's what people are excited about. And to some degree, every one of these, all it does is affect our state of mind, whether we're talking about our experience, our contribution, our self-care, our work, our relationships. They affect our state of mind. And what we're saying is people are attributing a positive status for their state of mind when they are having experiences that give them joy. And if we look at the happiest, healthiest, most successful people, and Tom, you can think about the list, your golden Rolodex, and the people that you know. I'm going to say there are people that spend the most of their day in and day out, involved in things that excite them, in duties that excite them. So then the question is, is it again, back to that luxury? They have just earned the ability to spend all day long on the golf course. I'm going to say no. And I'm going to ask you your thoughts on this. I'm going to say they have found ways to have excitement within pretty much all of these areas. They've figured out a way to take them from a drudgery, a negative perspective, and find joy in them, maybe by being clear on what the motive is, how this thing impacts their life. And so when they look down at some of these lower things, like even money was not one that excited people. That's probably not helping their finances. Money doesn't excite me in and of itself either. Probably doesn't help my finances. How can I be more excited about money by attributing to this is what money allows me to do? I saw my dad go through that transition quite a bit. So, but I'm going to come back to you, Tom, with that. If you think about the people in your life, happiest, healthiest, most successful, is that fair? And how would you say they're doing that they have figured out how to find excitement, find joy in all of these areas of necessary life?
Dad is the litmus test for me. I mean, he was the almost the ideal example, and he relished everything. It almost didn't matter what it was. But it's not that he liked everything. So I think there's a difference between relish and like in this context. He relished exercising, but a lot of exercise that he didn't like. Mm-hmm. He relished it because it elevated his game for everything else. Okay. So, I'm thinking if Dad were filling out this list, it'd be like, yeah, there's 2 or 3 that are at the top, but everything else ties for second. I mean, it's like he gets excited about all of those things. It would, it'd be in the high, and he would probably say the people who were ranking money and possessions low, he would probably joke and say, yeah, they'll probably lie about other things too.
Well, now if we go to the emotion though, does that change that? Is that, again, this wasn't a scientific study, but if we look at that, is it because I would have thought money would be higher, that people would be excited about the idea, especially in our crowd, honestly, So here's our crowd of aspiring people, so many business owners or people who have a side gig, people who are really excelling in their work or want to. I would have thought money would be up there more, but I'm curious about the emotion. If we look at it and go, gosh, when it comes down to it right now, the culture, maybe this has always been this way, or maybe right now, and money is not exciting them. That it's not creating, it's not an initial positive emotion. Cause I think about the business people, especially that I know, the guys are our peers, Tom. Most of them are excited about money. They're excited about making money. It shows success in their business, just like Rabbi Daniel Lapin told us. It's a certificate of appreciation. They appreciate what money allows them to do, whether that's build and grow their business. And most of their businesses include, like ours do, influence with people, contribution, which was the number 4 thing there. So they're excited about that. And they're excited because it helps fund those experiences as well. So I can attribute it to that. And yet when I just threw this out there in the immediate, I mean, these are people's gut reactions. I mean, I got responses within minutes and they're going right away. Money wasn't an exciting thing.
Yeah, but in the rating, nobody said money's number 12. They just didn't rate it in their top 2 or 3.
True.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there's probably some wiggle room there. I'm coming down on money like this.
Okay.
People, we like what money will buy, but we love what money won't buy.
Right.
And so, but here's how it's all interconnected. So let's just say that I get really excited about money and somebody says, well, why? Well, then I can have experiences and take the people I love most with me. So all of a sudden, relationships and experiences are fed the rocket fuel which is what money provides. It provides for that. And I'll just be honest with you, Kevin, if I had more money than I knew what to do with, self-care, massages, physical therapist, acupuncture, all those kind of things that we do for ourselves, that we kind of treat ourselves with, that make you feel good, I'm probably doing them like all the time. I mean, a chef coming to cook at the house to make the healthy gourmet meal. I mean, that's something that's an experience that money provides. But I get probably that line is, what do I like versus what do I love? And gosh, why don't people put work higher up there?
I'm afraid we've continued to put it in this category of it's a necessary evil. And what bothers me, and I've shared this before, but I had a friend who lives right here in the town that I'm in, and I was working with him. He was looking at some work transitions years ago. He had a fairly high profile job, high paying job at a big company. I don't think it was Hewlett Packard, but it was kind of that genre of company. And he was there. And as we started talking about it and working through some things, he says, the weighty thing that hit him, he says, Kevin, I don't enjoy my work, or I don't find a whole lot of life in it, at least. It wasn't inspiring to him. And so I'm going in here and I'm just doing it to provide for my family. And my primary motivation or inspiration is our yearly trip, our annual vacation. And they would do a big one. It was go to Walt Disney World or go to, Cancun or whatever. It was a big expense, big adventure, big experience. And yet he's, for the first time, looking at going, how do I justify working 50 weeks out of the year and not enjoying, not having experiences just for those 2 weeks? Does that make sense? And that's a question for everybody. I mean, I can hear some of the old timers saying, hey, work wasn't meant to be enjoyed. You do that and you provide for a family, you're a mule and just put food on the table, get an experience now and then. It's a luxury.
I was talking to a friend last night and he was sharing some of the challenges he's having at work, and he just had someone resign and he's understaffed. He can't hire. It's like he's trying to find people to come and work. The job market is so tight there. And so we started, why did this person resign? Because they had all kinds of perks and bonuses and specials and and they took a job somewhere else, and kind of more of a a little bit less demanding mentally job, not a less important job, just doesn't require as much mental acuity in a lot of different areas. And so one of the things we settled on was burnout. Um, so many people are burned out. It's not that they don't want more money, it's just that they don't want to invest 60 hours a week for that money. They'd rather do 30 hours a week for, 60% of the money. And I think that's part of the great resignation right now. And then there's the other side of it, which is there's a belief, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people believe that, hey, you know what? Work is work. It's all I have to. It's not a get to. No matter what I do, it's not going to be my first desire. So I'm just going to go and resign and get paid as much as I can for whatever I do, because they're all bad. All jobs are bad. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm blessed. That's why I love working with coaches and the people we work with, because at the end of the day, their paycheck is other people's success.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you get paid for it. Awesome. But you also get, people calling you out and saying, hey, I wouldn't be where I am without you. But
Well,
you know what? There's any job you can do that.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, gosh, it's such a deep, long path for us to discuss. This may take more than this show. I am interested, Tom, again, the third one, which wasn't that far behind the first result, experiences, then health and wellness. The third one, state of mind. And we look at that, we're in a place right now where we see mental health. It's headline issue right now. We're seeing the stats. Diseases of despair are one of our fastest growing areas within chronic illness and disease right now in our massive healthcare economy. And that depression, despair, even suicide, but you can even, bubble up to apathy, feeling blue, whatnot. We did a show recently just on this issue of depression and the different variations from I'm just feeling kind of blue on down to suicidal. We did a couple shows on depression in my True Life podcast with Dr. Randy James. But if we look at state of mind, I think people are realizing that. So it's not, I know that it's important. I'm interested. I wouldn't have guessed maybe that people are excited about it, but I am, is looking at a better state of mind. At the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. We would all I just want more peace. I want more joy. We're talking about a state of mind. And so then again, to come down here and realize we're putting the majority of our day and the best of our efforts into work where we're saying that doesn't excite us, man, that's a hard road to hoe to address our state of mind when we're spending our day in a place that we admit is not exciting. Now, again, does that mean that we're supposed to just be looking for something that's just play? Hey, I'd rather just be on the golf course. I'll just get a job as a golf caddy and I can be on the golf course all day. I'm not a fan of that it's just play and fun within your work. I would do what I'm doing now with $1 billion in the bank. Yet there's still hard effort in it. There's still challenge in it. But man, to have that reality of every day in, day out, week in, week out, hour in, hour and out, if we want a good, healthy, positive, happy state of mind, man, it's going to be hard to do if the majority of our hours are not spent with a level of positivity and excitement.
Yeah. When I wrote Choose to Win, the anchor quote in that book is the fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good habits.
Yeah.
So I sent that off to Seth Godin, who I get the privilege of 4 or 5 times a year bouncing a quick idea off of him. And I said, what do you think about that quote? And he said, I really like it. And then he said, but there is a faster way. And I said, what? He said, decide you're successful.
Yeah. Well, then we're back to state of mind.
So that plopped into my head when we said state of mind. And then Rabbi Lapin says that the opposite of depression is not happiness. The opposite of depression is purpose.
Yeah.
And so when we coach people, the first thing we do is connect their why and their purpose to their work.
Yeah.
Your work, your job, your vocation, the business that you own, whatever it is simply the vehicle to allow you to achieve your life goals. And if you think a little deeper, your life goals and your why and your purpose should all coincide. And so, what Rabbi Lappin was saying is that the pursuit of purpose, the byproduct of that is happiness. The pursuit of purpose, the byproduct of that is the right state of mind. Mm. And I don't believe we're happiness is the ultimate goal. Happiness is simply a byproduct of doing and living in the right way and thinking about things in the right way. So maybe that's the challenge is people, they didn't rate work up there because they haven't connected work to their why.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that it gives us a lot. I mean, if we look at these areas, we're talking about roles and responsibilities of life. If we look at that the day to day, every day I'm going to wake up and there are certain roles and responsibilities I'm going to have to fulfill. I'm interested in that as a muse for all of us. How do we take those areas and find excitement? I mean, if we want a healthy state of mind, we need to find some aspect of, we're back to core Ziglar, a level of positivity that we need to turn these things around. If we're looking at the day with drudgery, if we're looking at our pursuit of health and wellness, whether that's losing weight or getting past a chronic illness disease, and we're looking at it as drudgery, then we are hurting our state of mind, which we're saying is a high priority as well. How do we tend to our state of mind, and how we're each going to find excitement and positivity in each of these areas is going to be different. It's going to be totally different. The fact that I find one of my favorite joys of the day is going to be getting out into the woods and doing my hour run or 2-hour ride or whatnot could be drudgery for somebody else, which is fine. You do not have to try to make a 2-hour fast mountain bike ride fun for you. Find something else though. We're back to Dr. Randy James, our doctor. His quote, what's the best exercise? Whatever one you'll do. Whatever, which is ultimately going to be whichever one you find joy in. So for me, he's going to say, man, Kevin, I might ask him, is there a better overall exercise than biking or running? He might say, yeah, but will you do it every day with joy and expectation? No, well, then go ride, whatever gets you off the couch, man. And we're saying that in regards to all these.
I quoted Dr. James to my wife this week. So my wife is, she's really let herself go. She's gained 2 pounds since we were married. I think
wow, that's dire.
She's close to 106 now, maybe one. I mean, it's
funny.
So she goes to the doctor and they say, hey, we need to get your bone density up. And she does a lot of cardio, and she's like, well, what do I do? Because if I do more cardio, I'll lose more weight. You want me to gain weight, but you got to get your bone density up. And so they're like, well, you could do this and that, and, some weight training and stuff like that. And so she asked me, well, what exercise should I do? And I said, the one you'll do every day.
Yeah.
So she's just out there. I mean, now she's in there and she's bought some leg weights, real tiny stuff. Right. But she's just so consistent at it.
Yeah.
But what is the best exercise? What is the thing? It's what you're going to do. When I'm looking at the list, where'd you get that list? Did that pop out of your head?
It's one I've been playing with.
List.
Thank you.
That's a great list.
Thanks. Yeah. It's one I've been playing with as I was working with it. It was actually with it. I did a class in the Driven to Live community, and I was just thinking about this. And honestly, the very last one that I pulled out, Tom, because it came out of a discussion, when I was just about to post this, experiences wasn't on the list, not as a reference point, not as a title or a definition. I would have thought maybe that was within achievements or something like that. But then I thought about, gosh, experiences. And I'm finding more focus on that in my own life, my joy in the things that I want to experience daily, weekly, monthly. Do I want to let a day go by that I don't experience some aspect of a great joy? No, I just don't. Would I want my kids to go through a day with no joy in the day? No. Well, and back to where you referenced earlier, would my heavenly Father want me to go through a day of just pure drudgery? And I get to the day and he says, "Ah, good work, boy. You got some stuff done today." I don't, it's not the God I find in the Bible, as opposed to one who said, "Hey, thank you for taking joy in my creation as you hike down the mountain today." Not that it has to be that. I mean, again, there's 100 different things and you find the one that does it for you, but should I have a day without a great joy, a great experience to some degree? And, we all have to weigh that. One person might say, it's going to be 2 hours a day of massage. And somebody else, it's not going to be it, but it's finding what's individual for you, Tom.
I love that. And, maybe here's a business principle that we need to apply to our personal life or how we approach whatever job we do. Howard Partridge in our inner circle, one of the things that we coach all of our business owners is create an experience.
Yeah.
And in that, charge enough so that you can create an experience. And I think for us on the individual basis, maybe that means simply we've got to leave enough margin in our life to where we have that margin to create the experience in anything that we do. Maybe we can eat lunch with our wife in 38 minutes, but maybe it really should be an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So we can have the cup of tea or the cup of coffee at the end and have the conversation.
I think it's go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
I think it's a great place to leave off right there, is to find if experiences are number one, how are we going to do that? And I think a primary ingredient for most people is finding the margin for that. And there's going to be some things that may be good that we're going to have to let go by the wayside to have margin for that thing we say excites us the most, which is going to make us the best people that we can be. So Tom, as my brother and friend, I'm charging you with go have a fun experience.
Okay.
You'll be a better friend to me. Okay.
I'm all in.
All right. Thanks.